Howdy! Welcome to the Colorful Homeschooler podcast, where we parlay on productivity, personality, passions, education, and theory. I'm a lover of Jesus, a wife of 20 years, and a homeschool mama of 4 special needs boys who keep me constantly active. I'm so glad you're here to join me. Pull up a chair, there's space for you at this table. Brew up some cocoa and pull up your Christmas stockings. We're doing a holiday planning podcast. Overall, holiday planning should still be fun and light. We need to get some work done, but you can turn up some Bing and consume some gingerbread with a pine-scented candle burning. Let's make it lovely for you. First, I'd like to share with you a pretty poem that really brings to mind the heart of the season. The Coming by R.S. Thomas. And God held in his hand a small globe. Look, he said. The sun looked. Far off, as through water, he saw a scorched land of fierce color. The light burned there. Crusted buildings cast their shadows. A bright serpent, a river, uncoiled itself, radiant with slime. On a bare hill, a bare tree saddened the sky. Many people held out their thin arms to it, as though waiting for a vanished April to return to its crossed boughs. The sun watched them. Let me go there, he said. So I chose that poem because this is a time where we celebrate Emmanuel, God with us. But we have some planning to get done for this season, right? There are a lot of moving parts. So you begin with life planning, then school planning, and then self-planning. And we balance it all so that you can make an amazing time of beautiful memories for yourself and your family. So the first thing I want to start with is a word. I talked about this in my last podcast, and I'm talking about it again. Is there a word that you want this season to evoke? Now, I'm going to do a whole episode on words for the year and picking specific scriptures, but this is a mini practice. This word can guide your decisions when you're trying to decide what to do in some of the categories I'm going to bring up to you. So you want to make sure to choose a word that is what you want the season to exemplify. For example, cozy, sweet, snuggly, holy, usher. And it can be as near and dear to you as possible, but it should be personal. And I'm going to bring this word up a bunch through the podcast, so press pause and give it a try. What word do you want this season to evoke when you look back on it? How about for my visualizers out there? For those that need something beautiful to look at to keep them centered, is there a color you want this season to evoke? And then what shade of that color? I mean, there are some incredible stories about different shades. Color theory can occupy 4 podcasts because there's so much to discuss about different shades and what they mean and their history. So say you're choosing red, do you want to choose scarlet or cochineal? Do you want to choose pink? Then is it rouge or chartreuse? What color, what shade are you looking at? And what feelings do these shades bring out for you specifically? What difference does it make for you? Now that we've got visual or word guidance or both, let's get into the practical planning questions. So we said, first, we're going to plan our lives. Celebrations. So pull out a lovely Christmas notebook or purchase the holiday planning guide that I have listed in the show notes. And let's get to asking the important questions. So what are you hosting this year? Pick your dates and then work backwards. When do you need to get invites out? What meals are you making for each of them? List everything, every detail. This is yours, so you don't need to make it super pretty or, I only want to list the important things. No, list it all. So invites. Well, who are you inviting? And when do you need to send those invites out? Not too early, not too late. We want a Goldilocks invitation. Meals. Is there anything you can order now to take that off your plate? And if not, what are the order dates that they have to be done by? You want to make sure to plan out the meals so that you can work backwards. Okay, say you're hosting Thanksgiving. Well, when do you need to order the turkey? When do you need to pick up the turkey? How about stuffing? Do you start yours days before? Do you start at the morning of? You want to make sure that all of that is planned out so it's not a last-minute scramble. Also, things sell out for the big holidays, so you want to make sure if you're planned ahead, you're going to get the best options. How about decor? When do you want to have certain pieces of that up by? When do you want to have your tree up? When do you want to have your garlands up? Do you make your garlands? When do you want to have different pieces of your Joshua tree set up, etc.? Whatever the decorations are for you, list them all out. When do they need to be done? What do you need to purchase for it? Do you need anything this year? When do you need to, say, go to storage and pick it up if it's not in your home? Or when do you need to unpack which box? These are all good questions to list. Set up the meal prep calendar for yourself. Are you not hosting anything? Well, that comes with its own questions. Which dates do you have already? For your work Christmas party or your children's performance that you are bringing oranges to, can you write somebody that hasn't given you the dates yet and ask for the dates? Do you know what you're bringing to each event? And if not, can you be the first to pick because you're thinking about it earliest? That sounds great to me because then I bring something that's easy and delicious. Next, how about traditions? What traditions are a must for you? Now, these are important because you could get to the end of the season and realize, oh my gosh, we never read my favorite Christmas book. Or, oh my goodness, I wanted to plan this sleigh ride that we've done for the last 3 years, but now all the spots are booked up because I forgot. This season comes with a lot of its own weights and measures. So that's why planning this early will really help you to get everything in that is a must for you. For example, we always cut down our Christmas tree the day after Thanksgiving. That tradition is a must for us. So we're hosting Friendsgiving this year, but that day after needs to be solidly held for cutting down our tree, coming home, and then putting on the Christmas music because it's cold and watching a Christmas movie with some hot chocolate and cookies. Look up the dates for the community traditions. There's a beautiful Christmas tree lighting that we go to every year. Well, what's the date? Does it fit our calendar this year? And if not, we're either going to have to work around it or figure that out earlier so we can prepare the family. So my suggestion would be list all of your desired traditions out before you put them on the calendar. Now, do you need to cull? Are there too many? Are there overlapping ones? Are there not enough? Also, when you need to decide, do they each fit with your word or your color? See, this is a good way to help you decide, well, if it's cozy that you're looking for and all of your traditions are outdoor with huge crowds, you're probably not going to be obtaining that word by the end of the season. So do you want to change that or do you want to change your word? These are important decisions to make, that there's room and that you have availability for the fun things that come up. Some ideas of what these community traditions might be: think about the craft fairs that you like to go to, the craft boutiques, the Christmas boutiques, the child performances, maybe yours, maybe family members. Make sure you've got those in that list. Lighting of the Christmas tree or looking at different Christmas trees, going to the botanical gardens. These are all options that maybe are your favorite things to do, but man, it's easy to forget when we have a lot of kids and they each have their own favorites. Listing it out can really be helpful. Next, so we've talked about celebrations and we've talked about traditions. Listing each of them out and making sure you are as detailed as possible. Next is gifts. Right? List it. List your definites, including children, friends, extended family, your husband's or your work or clients. You want to make sure that you have everyone listed out. First thing to look at is mailing dates. What is the date you want to have them mailed by? Also, can you mail them early, right? Save time on the line, ship them out, get that off your mental list. Next, figure out your budget for gifts. Now, we save all year for Christmas, but maybe you didn't this year. That's okay, but figure out where the money is going to come from then. Perhaps you're going to homebrew your coffee for the next 2 months, or maybe you're not going to go out to eat, or you might be able to cut some subscription services just for a couple months over the Christmas season. Homemade gifts. When do you need to start making them? Pick your done date and work backwards from there so that you get all of those beautiful homemade gifts that are sometimes the best things under the tree. You get those made. Okay, now school planning. We've done the life planning, the main 3 categories. How about school planning? This could be a whole episode in and of itself, but I'm going to ask you the important questions, and then your mind's going to spin from there. For example, what Advent resource are you using this year? Do you have one that you always use? Well, then that's simple. You just pick it up. But question yourself, is it still doing the job? Do you want to use the same one again? And if you do, that is awesome. But if you switch it up all the time, which one do you want to use this year? Start researching if you look for a new one each year. Start asking the people that you trust or checking it out different reviews on Amazon so that you pick something that really fits your family and you don't find yourself at the start day of Advent figuring out what to do that very day. When does Advent begin this year? So if you're listening to this in 2024, it starts on December 1st. 2025, it starts on November 30th. So you've got some time, but it's important for you to get started now figuring out what you want to use for your Advent planning. Now, look through that, write a list of supplies, and get them. That way, if a project comes up or perhaps a piece of music, you've already found it and the work is completed. How about what art projects or crafts are you going to do with your children for the season? A lot of times it's really nice during the season to take a day every now and again or a lesson time and do a lovely art project or a craft project. You want to plan the week that you'll do them in. Get the supplies that you need and schedule them out. That way you know that they're going to get done. And this is another situation that I was talking about before where you don't get to the end of the season and you're like, shoot, I really wanted to do that watercolor painting of Christmas candles with my kids this year. But it's too late and now you're in the Christmas break or something like that. So you want to schedule those out. Now, what are your lesson plans going to be for the holiday? Are you doing anything different? Are you taking some time off? Is it going to be the same? Are you going to continue the norm for the whole season? There's something to be said for routine, so respect if that is what you're going to do. But at the same time, many of us hunker down and create something more focused or relaxed during the season. If this is you, keep that word or color in mind. So this season, again, if it's cozy, well, what are you going to do in your lesson planning to create that cozy atmosphere and make sure that that's a word that comes to mind? Do you want a poem each week? Pick the poems and assign them to the week. So that way you know that you're going to get that poetry in. You're ready for it. How about a folk song or a hymn each week? Pick them, assign them. A piece of art. How often? Are you going to do that daily? Will it be a different piece of art? Will you do it weekly? Same for the other questions. Pick them, assign them. We're noticing a theme. Okay, how about geography? Are you going to keep your lessons the same, or will you take a break and do maybe Christmas around the world, where Christmas traditions come from, which could also count for history? My favorite story is the Christmas tree. Now, usually Prince Albert, Queen Victoria's consort, is given the honor of historically introducing the Christmas tree to England. But that honor actually goes to an earlier German, Queen Charlotte, who married King George III. Well, she missed the traditions of her childhood, so she originally started with a yew branch with beautiful candles in it, and everyone would gather around it. Queen Charlotte would dress the yew branch, and then they would all sing Christmas carols. Well, in 1800, she expanded that and created a beautiful pine tree inside the palace with lovely almonds and sweetmeats and gifts hanging all around the tree. There was a party that many were invited to, and sure enough, the upper class nobility all saw this beautiful Christmas tree and went gaga for it. So immediately it spread like wildfire, and everybody who was anybody wanted one in their house. Kind of fun learning about tradition. So might you take a bite out of that instead of doing your normal history and geography curriculum? Another option in history is, what about the different events that go on for Christmas throughout history? What about the World War I ceasefire or the Council of Nicaea, where the true St. Nicholas was actually there and punched somebody in the face? Kind of a fun story. Look it up. How about science? What about Christmas astronomy? There are amazing studies on what the wise men were actually tracking and what difference it made in the sky. How amazing. What about creating snowflakes? Or what about doing desert earth science, because the wise men had to pass through the desert? And yes, I know. Don't write me emails. I know they came 3 years after Jesus's birth. I know they weren't in the Nativity, but they are traditionally a part of Christmas, so it's still kind of exciting to learn about them. And now, literature, English, writing. What are the best Christmas books? List them out. What do you want your read-alouds to be? Get ready. Order them from the library if that's what you do, or get a secondhand copy. Buy a new one, whatever the case may be. Pick and assign them to their week, even to the day. If you, like me, read only a couple chapters once a week and then push it to the next week, divide it out so you're ready with your lessons and you know what you're reading. Build in flexible time. And as I've said for all these decisions, does it evoke the word that you yourself chose, the color that you yourself chose? Now we've done life planning and we've done some school planning. How about self-planning? Because lady, you're important too. So are you a crafter or an artist? The only difference between those two words are the mediums that you use, right? So plan out your project priorities. What do you want to be working on? And schedule your waypoints. In my first episode, I talked about setting goals, breaking them down into small, manageable pieces. This is an ideal example of when you would want to do that. If you have a goal to get a small baby quilt made by Christmas to give to a newborn in your family, you're going to want to set up those waypoints so you know exactly when you need to have certain blocks made, certain corners made, and then the edging put on, the batting, and the quilting, right? You need to know those things so you don't get to Christmas and you're like, I should have started this 7 weeks ago, but instead I only started it 1 week ago. Whoops. You'll figure something out, but wouldn't it be great to get it done? I know it would. Plan out those priorities. Again, when you're choosing self-projects, how's that word? How's that color? Does this exemplify what you want to evoke this season? And when you list it out, if there's too many, use your word or color to help focus you at that point. How about your own reading? What devotion will you personally use this year to grow closer to the Lord during this incredible season? What fun books? Are you doing any learning this season through your books, or do you just give yourself a break and do fun Christmas fiction? I know there's space for both of those things, so do what's right for you this season. Reserve the books at the library if that's what you do, or search for used copies online. You want to make sure that you have that ready because, again, a lot of these get taken out and then you won't get a choice. Next, movies. Yay! Holiday movies. List out your musts so you don't miss any of them. Cycle other favorites through. Well, maybe you don't get to all of your favorites every year. Who can? There are so many good Christmas movies. So how can you cycle them? Maybe you do Scrooged this year, and then next year you do the Michael Caine Scrooge, which is the Muppet one, and then maybe the next year you do the one from 1965. You can cycle them. Pre-buy tickets or plan the date to do so for your upcoming big theatrical releases. If you're planning to go Christmas week to the big movie that's coming out, well, you're going to want to make sure that that's on the calendar so you know when you have to buy those tickets because that is going to be sold out super fast. Also, plan wiggle room. Don't overcommit yourself on movies because you know something's going to come up and you're going to be like, oh, I really want to watch such and such, A White Christmas or It's a Wonderful Life, if that's not already on your must list. How about baking? What cakes, cookies, pastries do you want to make this season? Which one do you want to do with your kids? Which ones do you want to do by yourself? Which ones can you add into lesson time? Which ones definitely are a you project? List them out and gather your recipes together. On the last podcast, again, I spoke of a productivity trick of having all things ready and out for use. So this is perfectly exemplified by getting those recipes together. And what are your musts versus your desired baking goals, right? Maybe just 1 to 2 favorites per family member. Maybe you pick them all. What's right for you? Once you have your recipe gathered, order or purchase any of those Christmas-only ingredients or the muffin candy paper cups, maybe sprinkles or nonpareils that you don't usually keep in the house. Whatever you need to make those desires a reality. Finally, for those of us with sensory challenged kiddos or ones with rigid thinking, this takes a little bit of extra grace and tact. There's some special planning that goes into this time of year for those of us with special needs in our household. For our kids with sensory challenges or struggles with changes to routine, think of the upheaval in this time period. Think of the sensory differences, the smells, the sights, the sounds, colors, flashing lights, the uptick in sugar consumption. This is a really big deal for these kiddos. What about schedule changes, those who struggle with that? Well, no matter how much we pare down, there's still a huge upheaval during this time of year for a schedule change. How about rigid thinking? Several times through the season, my family will hear, well, we always do this, even though it only happened once last year. But in my child's mind, he really remembers having always done this particular thing, and he has now counted it a must tradition. What's that all about? Well, these children's brains get a dopamine hit. Their brain remembers this surge of excitement and happiness that gave them all this dopamine, and their brain is looking for it again. So they are sure that they've always done it because that dopamine hit has clouded that true memory that it was only last year and it's not a tradition for your family. Prepare these children as best as you can. Really think about them. This is something that I write out how I'm going to best prepare each of my children in different ways. Can you do some social stories? And if you don't know what that is, send me a DM or write it on my page, send me an email. Let me know because I can do a podcast on social stories. How about visual representations of what will happen? Checklists for them. Maybe you sit down and have a discussion with them. Well, what are the exact traditions that you remember that you're really looking forward to? And then have a real true moment of sitting down, open communication, nice cup of tea with the two of you, and you're able to talk it out. So if it's not something that truly happens every year, you can handle that in that moment, which is a calm moment, and not in a sensory charged moment when they're believing that it's going to happen any minute. Maybe allow them to choose a firm number of events that you do, and the rest of it they don't get to choose. Will that work for your child? Maybe, maybe not. How about keeping space for them that keeps the same sensory feel that they're comfortable with? So maybe a corner where there are no Christmas decorations, and there's maybe a darker curtain so they can shade their eyes from the blinking lights of the tree. Or maybe for an hour each night when you're reading your family read aloud, there's no Christmas tree on. Something that's going to make them have that same routine in a certain time of day so that they can prepare themselves by saying, okay, I need to get through these 2 hours, and then I have my hour of read aloud and no Christmas lights and no Christmas music, or whatever the case may be that will work for you. How about building in decompression time each day? Calm space time to be able to go to a calming area. Or perhaps it's just headphones on, glasses on, and you're relaxing laying down on your bed. Also, how about packing a holiday sensory bag that travels with you throughout the season? Some of the things that could be in there are essential oils that they really like the scent of, that's very calming to them. So it can kind of nullify this scent explosion that is the season of Christmas. How about therapeutic or blue light glasses? And there are a bunch of different options for therapeutic glasses that have really good studies for sensory challenged or autistic or ADHD children. Noise-canceling headphones, or just a small music player that has their favorite classical music or calming music on it. And then, of course, those tactile items that are calming. Fur, maybe a piece of fur. How about sand or slime or goo? What calms your baby? You're going to know. So packing a small bag that comes with you to all of the events, and maybe they're embarrassed of it. So can you put that in your bag? And then when they need it, they go to a small corner where nobody's going to see them and they have their moment of decompression. This is important for these kiddos so that they can really enjoy the season just like us. So I hope this has been helpful. Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, and all else that this season means to you. Above all, remember what this season is about. If you liked me, please keep listening, follow the show, and subscribe. Also, if you could take a minute and please leave me a 5-star review on whatever podcast app you use. This will get my podcast out to more listeners. And thank you for that. Also, if it would be helpful for you, please check out the journal prompts that I came up with to help you plan your holiday the best you ever have. I'm selling it in the show notes. Very affordable, really beautifully designed, and I really hope it will be a help and an encouragement to you. And to end with this poem, A Christmas Carmen by John Greenleaf Whittier. Part 1. Sound over all waters, reach out from all lands, the chorus of voices, the clasping of hands. Sing hymns that were sung by the stars of the morn. Sing songs of the angels when Jesus was born. With glad jubilations bring hope to the nations. The dark night is ending and dawn has begun. Rise, hope of the ages, arise like the sun. All speech flow to music, all hearts beat as one. Emmanuel is God with us. Merry Christmas. And remember, ladies, I believe in you.